Hey guys, Boris Lasser from BK. Great to be with you. Another super week of trading at BK. We had two very good trades in the Aussie, and it's just overall been a very fun, exciting week to trade. There's been a lot of movement, especially front of the week, in all the major currency pairs. And I wanted to take you back today and kind of discuss in a little more detail of what I call what works in scalping. Because last week I showed you a very, very simple, but I think effective reversion to the mean strategy. But the key to the strategy, ironically enough, is patience. What really works in scalping, which is a very, very fast, highly reactive type of activity, is actually sitting on your hands 99% of the time. Because, for example, when you get into this type of situation, it's very, very tempting. Very tempting to just simply, fade the move. That's a big candle into the Bollinger Band, and fade this kind of move. And sometimes it works, and it looks really good. But the problem is, when you start doing a lot of these things continuously, what you discover is that when you don't have a very rigorous, strict set of rules, a lot of these fades basically spike out. For example, if you were to fade here, this looks like it probably would have spiked out and took you out before it actually came back down. And a lot of them simply do not work. Because the critical thing about creating a good algorithm is that you're basically trying to handicap human behavior. You're trying to handicap typically rare events, especially in a reversion to the mean type of strategy here. Because remember, generally the rule is the rarer the trade, the better the trade. So ironically enough, even on a very short-term type of setup where we like to trade 5, 6, 7 times a day, we have to sit through lots and lots and lots of minutes. Ignore, even though this would be an tempting short, ignore these kind of setups because they're just not within the parameters of what we like to do. Even something like this, that looks like it's actually what is our setup. It really isn't, because what you notice here is you do not have extreme extensions continuously. What we're looking for is an extreme extension continuity, which is a rare but generally a high probability event. So this is euro dollar. Here's an example, by the way, of finally where we get a little bit of this kind of a setup. So being patient over here, if we took 1, 2, 3, we're short here. And even here wouldn't have given us a very, very good print, but it was good enough. We were shorting at 48.08. And by the way, I just want everybody to understand, in addition to the 3-bar setup, the one thing that I always avoid is, imagine that this third bar was at 47.90, 47.95. The one thing I always avoid is, if I have a conflict with my run to the zero setup versus my risk aversion setup, I always let the 00 setup take precedence. In other words, I do not front the 00 setup. I don't fade the 00 setup. So even if I have a setup like this and it stood before the 00 number, I would stand down, or I would wait for another candle hopefully to print, and I'll only fade the fourth one once it ran through the number. Because trying to stand in front of the number as they're about to run it, even if it looks like it's an extreme move, is a very dumb idea. Typically they're going to run the number before the extreme exhausts itself. So here we're coming in at 08. Stop is around 18, so we sort of survive it, barely, and then of course, it tends to work for plus 10. But however, what I wanted to show you was, this is another good setup, 1, 2, 3. It actually just dips a little bit lower, but you survive the stop and recovers well. But what I wanted to show you was actually a much more problematic position. Here's something like this. Now, this setup works a lot, as I said, but it also fails. And you have to understand the signature of when this type of setup fails. When you have continuous one-way relentless buying or selling, this setup, of course, will fail. So, for example, and this is a 3-bar setup over here, extension is relatively severe. Buying here would have been an absolute sucker's bet, right? Because it just stops you out at 47.05. By the way, another very interesting point is that if you're stopped out here, the dumbest thing you can do is go right back in a trade. Because what are you doing here? Yes, it's overextended. Yes, it's had like five bars in a row against you, but you're coming in against the 00 setup, and of course they're going to break the handle before any kind of a bottoming out process happens. But even more importantly, the other rule that I implement is that if I have 1, 2, 3 and a stop, I begin my count again. The very, very important thing, and the monstrous trap that you never want to get into, is to in other words, get stopped out and keep reshorting. Because you do not have a fresh setup until you have. So if this was 1, 2, 3 and I got stopped out of the setup, I would reset my setup at 1, 2, 3. And only after I had the second series of 3 moves to the downside would I consider another possible buy, which at this point pretty much works a little bit. I mean, this actually gets very problematic because I think we're coming in at 82, and I think this may have, yeah, it just barely survives. It really just barely survives the stop over here, and it eventually does turn around. Makes and makes the reversion to the means. Remember, reversion to the mean works. It definitely does. But when it doesn't, the most important thing is to get out of the way and to re-begin your count. You're looking for those rare, unusual situations during the day when the probabilities are in your favor. And that's the key to what works when you're scalping. Now, before I leave you, I want to show you something that you might find interesting. This is the BK record since we went to session-based trading. Basically, we've done about more than 800 pips over the last month and a half. And I wanted to show this to you because I think while, of course, there's absolutely no guarantee that past results are going to show you any kind of future performance, I think it shows you just how robust our model has become for the time being. And that's why I want everybody to consider and invite you, for those of you who are not in our room, to come try us out because we're trading well, and I hope you would enjoy your experience with us. I'm going to post the link to our website right on this video, and if you're interested, feel free to come down and read about everything that we do. And in the meantime, I wish you the best of luck. Next week, I will be gone, so no video, but 2 weeks from now, we'll reconvene again and discuss our adventures in Scalpland. This is Boris Schlossberg for BK. Best of luck and over and out.